Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Sister Sister, a podcast for spiritual baddies. We are your hosts, Ellen and Maya, and today's episode we're going to be talking about sacred geometry.
Hi guys. So this is a topic that I've been diving into recently. However, Amaya researched this episode because she didn't really know anything about it, so I figured it would be a good way for us to both learn some things.
Yeah, so we're just going to dive right in right now and get right to it. So, in our episode, as we do for every post on our YouTube channel, we do include the sources, so you can read more about everything that we're about to discuss at the YouTube link in our description box and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But let's get right into it. From crystallinks.com, is reality nothing more than stimulated experiences set in the concept of linear time to study emotions? From the beginning of time, there are those who believe reality is a dream, an illusion, or something we cannot yet define, but we sense that it is there and follows specific patterns or algorithms of experience known today as sacred geometry. The term sacred geometry is often used by archaeologists, anthropologists, geometricians, and metaphysicians to encompass the religious, philosophical, and spiritual beliefs that have sprung up around this geometry in various cultures during the course of human biogenetic experiment. Sacred geometry is another term for the algorithm, matrix, illusion, or simulation that unites and creates all realities, even those we are not aware of but speculate on such a string theory. Sacred geometry involves sacred universal patterns used in the design of everything, most often seen in sacred architecture and sacred art. The basic belief is that geometry and mathematical ratios, harmonics, and proportions are also found in music, light, and cosmology. This value system is seen as a widespread, even in prehistory, a cultural universal of the human condition. Sacred geometry is considered foundational to building sacred structures such as temples, mosques, megaliths, monuments, and churches. Sacred spaces such as altars, temenoi, and tabernacles, meeting places such as sacred groves, village greens, and holy wells, and the creation of religious art, iconography using divine proportions. Alternatively, sacred geometry based arts may be ephemeral, such as visualization, sand painting, and medicine wheels. In ancient civilizations, the golden ratio, aka sacred geometry, was often employed in the design of art and architecture, from the simple spiral to more complex designs. Today, sacred geometry is still used in planning and construction of many structures such as churches, temples, mosques, religious monuments, altars, tabernacles, sacred spaces, and creation of religious art. Sacred geometry may be understood as a worldview of pattern recognition, a complex system of religious symbols and structures involving space, time, and form. According to this view, the basic patterns of existence are perceived as sacred. By connecting with these, a believer contemplates the great mysteries and the great design. By studying the nature of these patterns, forms, and relationships and their connections, insight may be gained into mysteries, the laws and lore of the universe.
Yeah. So sacred geometry is kind of a basis for like every theory that exists ever. Take that into consideration. So, from Pardesco, when we observe sacred geometry symbols, we're witnessing the invisible architecture of reality itself. These patterns serve as a powerful bridge between rational science and intuitive spirituality, offering insights that satisfy both our analytical minds and our sense of wonder. The perfection of these designs speaks to something beyond random chance, a resonant order that connects all things. Have you ever gazed at a flower's spiral pattern or a seashell's perfect curve and felt an inexplicable sense of recognition? That response is your intuitive connection to sacred geometry, an acknowledgement of these universal patterns that exist within you as well. The philosophy behind sacred patterns. Sacred geometry represents a profound philosophical framework that bridges ancient wisdom and contemporary understanding. At its core lies the belief that geometric patterns are not merely human constructs, but rather fundamental principles embedded in the fabric of reality itself. This philosophy suggests that consciousness and matter are intimately connected through mathematical relationships, that the universe is, in essence, a living geometric thought. Philosophers from Pythagoras to Plato viewed geometry as the language through which the divine architect communicates the underlying order of existence. Pythagoras famously declared all is number, suggesting that numerical relationships form the essence of all things. This wasn't mere mysticism, it was an early recognition that mathematical patterns govern everything from musical harmony to planetary orbits. The Genesis pattern. Sacred geometry begins with a profound concept. Everything in our universe emerges from a single point of infinite potential. This primordial beginning, known as the monad from Greek monados, meaning unity or one, represents the first emanation of creative force, the mathematical genesis of all forms. From the singular point emerges the first and most fundamental sacred geometric pattern. The I'm gonna butcher this. Vestia Pisces, believe is how you say it. I have read about it. I never pronounce it right. Created when two identical circles intersect so that the center of each lies on the circumference of the other. This elegant almond shaped portal represents the first division of unity into duality. Modern scientific perspectives. Contemporary science has unveiled striking correlations between sacred geometric patterns and fundamental physical laws. String theory, one of the leading candidates for a theory of everything, proposes that the universe consists of vibrating strings whose patterns create all particles and forces. These vibrational modes correspond precisely to geometric relationships long recognized in sacred geometry. The E8 lattice, discovered by mathematician Garrett Lisi, represents one of the most complex geometric structures known to mathematics, a 248-dimensional pattern that may encode all known particles and forces in physics. Remarkably, when projected into lower dimensions, the structure reveals patterns strikingly similar to traditional sacred geometry forms, including the flower of life and Mellotron's cube.
Okay. So a lot of these special 3D figures are made from basic flat shapes. So the cube is made of 6 squares. The cube is made of 6 squares. The tetrahedron is made of 4 triangles. The octahedron is made of 8 triangles. The dodecahedron is made of 12 pentagons. And the icosahedron is made of 20 triangles. What makes them unique? All 5 shapes have identical faces and angles. They're also the only shapes that can perfectly fit inside a sphere, touching the sphere at each corner. The Vesica Pisces is, as it stands, the most fundamental of all sacred geometry symbols because it's an elegant intersection of two identical circles where each center rests perfectly on the other's circumference. We may recognize this shape from simple Venn diagrams, but its profound sacred geometry has resonated across civilizations for millennia, appearing in sacred art, ceremonial seals, and the architectural mathematics of our most revered structures. This cosmic doorway generates several powerful derivative symbols. The Jesus fish was adopted by early Christians as a secret recognition symbol during times of persecution and now a worldwide emblem of Christian faith. You might often see this on many people's like cars or windows or stuff like that. It's a sticker. Um, the triquetra or the triple vesica represents divine trinity in Celtic tradition and featured prominently in contemporary spiritual jewelry and tattoo art. The mathematically perfect below triangle, a curve of constant width that has influenced modern engineering and mechanical design, and the mandorla, which is Italian for almond, has the radiant aura surrounding divine figures in religious iconography, symbolizing the threshold between earthly and celestial dimensions. The seed of life represents one of the most sacred geometry shapes, a perfect arrangement between seven interlocking circles radiating from a central point. This elegant pattern embodies initial stages of the cosmic unfoldment, symbolizing the first steps of creation, recognized across diverse spiritual traditions worldwide. This sacred pattern reveals its significance through mathematical harmony. Each circle represents both the day of creation and the fundamental mathematical relationship. The seven circles create a perfect hexagonal symmetry that appears throughout nature. Spiritual traditions. Ancient wisdom keepers across cultures recognize this pattern as representing the 7 days of Genesis, the seven chakras of the body, and the seven classical planets. Natural manifestation. This pattern mirrors early cellular division from a single cell dividing into two, then four, then reaching the structure that forms the foundation for all complex organisms. Medieval cathedrals incorporated the seed of life in stained glass windows and floor designs, while traditional Islamic art features this pattern in intricate geometric compositions. Today, the symbol continues to inspire artists, architects, and healers who recognize its harmonious vibrations and sacred proportions.
All right, next we're going to talk about the egg of life, which represents the crucial transitional phase in sacred geometric progression, the moment when potential transforms into the blueprint for physical manifestation. Formed by 8 spheres arranged in perfect symmetry, this powerful configuration maps directly onto the 8 cell stage of embryonic development that occurs in all complex organisms. Building upon the seed of life's foundation, the egg of life emerges when the eighth circle completes a three-dimensional cubic structure, the mathematical matrix from which all biological life forms develop. This arrangement creates the structural framework for the precise cellular template for the development of human tissue and organ systems. The organizational pattern for music, as its 8 spheres correspond to the 8 tones of a musical octave. The crystalline structures that form the basis of minerals and gemstones. Then we have the flower of life, which stands as perhaps the most revered of all sacred geometry symbols, a magnificent pattern consisting of 19 complete circles arranged in a hexagonal pattern, often enclosed within a larger circle. This ancient symbol has appeared across diverse civilizations throughout history, transcending cultural and geographical boundaries. The symbol's remarkable global presence includes ancient Egypt. The most famous and complete depiction adorns a granite wall at the Osirian Temple of Abydos, Egypt, carved with remarkable precision over 6,000 years ago. The global sacred sites, this pattern appears in ancient synagogues in Israel, Buddhist temples in China and Japan, churches throughout Europe, and Mayan ruins in Mexico. Cross cultural reverence. From Celtic stone carvings to Ottoman architecture, diverse cultures incorporated this pattern into their most sacred spaces. Then we have the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life stands as one of humanity's most profound and universal sacred symbols, a dynamic map of consciousness that appears with remarkable similarity across diverse spiritual traditions worldwide. Far more than a mere diagram, this ancient template reveals the hierarchical structure of all forces in existence while providing a detailed roadmap for spiritual development. At its essence, the Tree of Life represents cosmic interconnection, a visual framework demonstrating how all dimensions of reality, from the highest divine realms to the physical world, are intimately connected through flowing channels of energy. The blueprint of creation in Kabbalah, the tree depicts how divine energy descends from unity consciousness into increasingly dense forms, eventually manifesting as our material world. Spiritual anatomy. Each component corresponds to aspects of human consciousness, from our most transcendent spiritual qualities to our earthly desires and instincts.
The fruit of life emerges as one of sacred geometry's most profound patterns, 13 perfectly arranged spheres extracted from the heart of the flower of life. This extraordinary configuration represents a critical threshold in sacred mathematics, serving as a dimensional gateway in the cosmic blueprint of creation. The significance of 13 spheres extends far beyond coincidence. Transcendent mathematics, the number 13 has been revered across ancient traditions as a sacred threshold number, representing completion of one cycle and the beginning of something entirely new. Dimensional transcendence, like a musical octave containing 12 semitones before reaching the next and 13th note, which begins the next octave at a higher frequency. The fruit of life represents the mathematical transcendence point between dimensional realities. Sacred architecture. The arrangement features a central sphere surrounded by 6 spheres, forming the seed of life, which are then surrounded by another layer of 6 spheres, creating a perfect symmetrical structure that begins geometric dimensions. The grid of life, also known as the 64 tetrahedron, at the pinnacle of sacred geometric complexity stands the 64 tetrahedron grid, often called the grid of life, a magnificent three-dimensional geometric structure that represents the masculine polarity to the feminine flower of life. This extraordinary configuration reveals the dynamic interplay between structure and void, energy and space, that creates the foundational framework of reality itself. The grid of life emerges through a precise geometric progression, beginning with a single tetrahedron, the simplest of the Platonic solids, expanding to the star tetrahedron, two interlocking tetrahedra, also known as the Merkaba, growing exponentially through perfectly nested iterations until reaching 64 interlocking tetrahedra. Then the torus, TORUS, emerges as perhaps the most fundamental and ubiquitous energy pattern in existence, a self-sustaining geometric structure that underlies everything from subatomic particles to galactic formations. Derived from the Latin word for swelling or bulging, this extraordinary three-dimensional form represents the primary energy dynamic through which all systems in the universe maintain themselves. The torus manifests as a donut-shaped energy field with a remarkable property, a continuous flow pattern that moves through the center, expands outward from one end, goes around the exterior and returns through the opposite end, creating a balanced, self-regulating system. And the Merkaba, which we mentioned before, represents one of the most powerful energetic structures in sacred geometry. Two interlocking tetrahedrons rotating in opposite directions to create a perfectly balanced multidimensional energy field. This extraordinary configuration derives its name from three Egyptian words: Mer, which is light; Ka, which is spirit; and Ba, which is body, literally translating to light, spirit, body, or chariot of light. The Merkaba structure consists of a downward-pointing tetrahedron representing feminine earth energy, an upward-point tetrahedron representing masculine cosmic energy, their perfect balance at the center point when activated through consciousness.
Now we're going to talk about 4D sacred geometry. Transitioning into the realm of 4D, there exist six regular convex polytopes, which are essentially the higher dimensional analogs of the Platonic solids. While the projections of these 4D shapes into our three-dimensional world can distort their true geometries, their rendered images nevertheless offer breathtaking glimpses into the symmetrical harmonies of higher dimension. For readers who are intrigued by the concept of 4D shapes and want to delve deeper into their fascinating world, we invite you to explore the blog post that was created by this website on 4D shapes, which gives you a comprehensive guide and an in-depth look into these complex structures, further illuminating the captivating intersections of mathematics, geometry, and reality. So let's talk about the golden spiral and the Fibonacci sequence, which I think a lot of us have probably heard of one or the other of these, if not both. Intimately intertwined with the golden ratio is the Fibonacci sequence, a series of numbers that has long captivated both mathematicians and nature enthusiasts alike. Its origins trace back to Indian mathematicians around 700 CE, but it was later popularized in the West by Leonardo of Pisa, more commonly known as Fibonacci. He brought this sequence to the forefront of mathematical discourse in his seminal work, Liber Abaci. One of the most awe-inspiring revelations about the sequence is its omnipresent in the natural world, especially in botanical forms. Almost magically, the petals of diverse flowers invariably align with the numbers of the Fibonacci series. Similarly, the seed arrangements in sunflowers and the spiral patterns of pine cones consistently adhere to Fibonacci numbers, underscoring nature's inherent mathematical design.
And last but not least, you're probably wondering, how does this improve my life and why is it important? So, through and contemplating sacred geometric shapes and codes, they can reveal deep wisdom, opening up to life and creation of the universe itself. It is believed that the ancients considered that the experience of sacred geometry was essential to the education of the soul. They knew that these patterns and codes were symbolic of our own inner realm and were significant to higher consciousness and self awareness. Sacred geometry amplifies our connection to spirit and creates harmony within ourselves and between ourselves and the outside world. It is often called sacred architecture because it underlies everything and is woven into the fabric of all creation. Sacred geometry contains high frequencies of energy and light that can activate, heal, awaken, and transform you. The symbols are like codes that assist you in your journey of life, but can also be used more consciously to bring about deep soul awakening and connection to our true divine essence. It can be used to open up pathways and doorways to infinite realms, as well as the connection to the oneness of all life in nature and the whole world around us. Sacred geometry brings about a certain effects of healing, harmonizing and rebalancing on all levels, connecting the inner, outer, and uniting all.
I think one of the things that, a lot of people think about whenever we specifically talk about sacred geometry and like metaphysics is the use of it whenever you do crystal gritting, which has become a more popular thing in, I want to say, probably like the last 2 decades. I don't think that it was like a huge thing like in the modern pagan era until then. But a lot of people will use points created by sacred geometrical shapes to put their crystals out in. And it's meant to create a higher frequency for specific intention.
All that being said, if you do want to learn more about sacred geometry and all of the different kinds of shapes that we talked about, you can look at the link in our description box and read more from there. So let's get right into tarot time.
What does the collective need to hear today, Spirit? I did not need 4 cards. Let's try again. What does the collective need? Oh, okay. Queen of Discs. A lot of queens. Um, Tonight. Because 2 episodes ago we got the Queen of Cups. So the Queen of Discs is about stability. It is about a womanly figure, doesn't necessarily have to be a woman, but the divine feminine, if you will, who feels very stable in her life. She feels very connected to the things around her. She's got that bag. She is living her best life. She's created stability, whether that is financial stability, emotional stability, stability within relationships and the people around her. She's feeling very stable, very connected. This also is a card that talks a lot about connection to nature because pentacles or discs are related to earth signs. So maybe you need to go outside and put your feet on the ground, depending on how cold it is where you live currently, because we are getting into November here. um, Go ground. Go touch some grass if there is grass to touch. I don't know. We're supposed to have a harsh winter in Pennsylvania, so there may not be grass to touch whenever this comes out in PA. It may have already snowed, but I guess we'll find out.
Or if you live in a concrete jungle, just go outside and touch the concrete. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And let's get right into astrology almanac with Elle.
Today, Uranus enters a Taurus. Seeing Uranus back in the sign of stability will help you to re-examine your current resources and what you need to do to have a stable future. Then on the 9th, Mercury retrograde begins in Sagittarius. You may find yourself needing space now more than ever from those around you. You may even try to run away to find yourself, but remember, travel delays are prevalent during any Mercury retrograde. This, however, is a good time to revisit places you've been before and try to look at them through a new light. Then on the 11th, Jupiter retrograde begins in Cancer. You may feel like opportunities are drying up. However, this is a good time to work on intuitive thinking, take some time to reflect on where you've been, and work through your karma. Double retrograde in 1 week, back to back, one day in between. I'm not prepared.
Dun dun dun.
I feel like the dun dun duns were very warranted.
Yeah, literally.
The planet's gotta be so dramatic.
Don't kill anybody. That's my best advice.
Yeah. Keep your head on straight. Figure it out, work through your karma, and if you feel like you need to just like seclude yourself for a little bit, do that. Do that.
So you don't end up on a grippy sock vacation.
Yeah, we don't need you doing that because then you can't listen to our podcast.
Exactly. And we'll miss you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sister Sister, a podcast for spiritual baddies. You guys know what to do. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook if you still use that. We love and appreciate you guys. And we can't wait to see you next time.